My name is Kurt Kurosaki. I run the site pef.com, which was actually started all because of Rebirth. These days I've been busy teaching Reason through Berklee College of Music in their online curriculum. I started using Rebirth in 1996, about the time when it first came out. The moment I saw Rebirth on the iPhone, I thought to myself, I can't wait till it's on the iPad. This is more than just the old Rebirth though. They make use of the multi-touch interface. Anyone who's actually used a real 303 knows that you can really only do 2 knobs at once, and not even that well because they're so close together. Now with the iPad version we have multi-touch, so you can control 2, 3, 4, 5 knobs at once. It's easier to use than the real hardware. We've been using computers for about 10 years now for complete production. We're in this era where people are just starting to get the idea of doing a complete production in the mobile environment. There's a challenge there. The sharing features now expand beyond just Rebirth users because there's an MP3 rendering engine. So you can share it with your BlackBerry friends and your Android friends and let them know what they're missing. Let's look at the Rebirth interface here, and I'm going to press play on the transport. And you see the 303s, the 808, the 909, the mixer controls, the pattern selectors, compressor, distortion, delay, pattern-controlled filter, and then a master level. A pattern in Rebirth represents a loop. It's the basic element of your song. It's just one measure that cycles. It's just one measure that cycles. It's just one measure that cycles over and over. It's the beat. The easiest way to understand it is if you look at the 808 or you look at the 909, you'll see 16 buttons on each one of these devices. Each one of these buttons represents a step, one segment of this loop. Let's start with something slower. We'll drop this to like 92 beats per minute. Click on bass drum, and let's program a couple of bass drum events. And then I can also control the selector here. So we'll set it to snare drum. Then we'll click on closed hi-hats, and I'll put one on every 8th note. And then we can dirty it up a little bit with some distortion. We can go down to the 909, select the hand clap. And we can add some delay to that. There you're done. And you'd be surprised how many songs are actually not much more than that. The 303 step sequencer works differently than the 808 because we don't have the luxury of 16 step buttons right on the interface. Instead, we have to scroll through each step by pressing the step or the back button, and you can see how the display number changes. So we started with the silent default song, so we have to go through first and start adding notes on each step. You can see I'm just going through here and repeating this process for each of the 16 steps. So if we play this, we'll just hear this repeating series of notes. Now I'm going to go back into the step sequencer and disable the notes on certain steps or put rests in on certain steps. So we'll go to step 4, step 7, step 10, 12, 16. Let me play this. And now you can hear there's a little bit of a groove pattern. So I'm going to go through to different steps and program pitches. Okay, so now we've added a few extra pitches in there. I'm going to transpose step 1 down, and when I add that modifier, it will transpose this first C down an octave. Then we'll go over to step 9, and we'll transpose that one up an octave. We'll leave it on step 9, and then I'll add slide. And so you hear the interesting little elastic pitch glide on there. Lastly is our accents, and what I'll do is I'll go back to step 5 and we'll add an accent. And you hear that sharp pulse. We'll do that again for step 13. So there we have the basic pattern programming, but it doesn't really get interesting until we start going in here and start changing some of these synth settings. So for each step of the pattern, you have to decide whether or not the note is on or off, whether it's sliding, whether it has an accent, and the pitch. The acidy, elastic sound that makes the 303 so unique comes from using these modifier keys. Here we have this song that I've been working on. It's developed around several different patterns for the 303s and the 808 and the 909. And if you look at the interface, on the left side of each of the devices, we have a pattern selector where we can store and recall the loops we've programmed. On pattern 1, we can store the main beat. And then when you get to a transition, like a fill, we can switch to pattern 2. Let me show you how I'm going to arrange them in my song. When I move from pattern mode over into song mode, the first thing I have to do is initialize the song from the pattern mode. Now I'm going to record the patterns into the sequencer. Here's my baseline section for the song. So now I'm going to go and record some filter movements on this. But you can go back as many times as you want and make as many adjustments layered on top of each other. I've arranged several different patterns in song mode, and I've also added knob and fader automation to the track. Now I'm going to switch over to a mod. Now a mod is going to change the graphics, but more importantly, it's going to change the samples in the 808 and 909 drum machines. So now I'm done with the song, and I can let others listen to it by using the share feature, which allows me to post it onto the internet, Facebook, or through an email where other people can listen to it as either a Rebirth song file or now as an MP3.
It doesn't surprise me that Rebirth has had this longevity. Everyone who's got a 303 is always going to love it until it dies. Here we are 30 years almost after the 303 emerged, 28 years of the 808, 25 years of the 909, and they're still in every piece of popular music out there. I think we've seen this trend now where we have instruments that become classics. Old Les Pauls, Hammond B3, Fenders, the Mini Moog. And I guess Rebirth has reached that status as well. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people were saying, what? Make music on computers? What, are you crazy? It was cutting edge when it first came out, and here we are at the cutting edge of a new emerging technology. Rebirth is back.